Welcome back, explorers. I'm David, that's Wesley, and this is the Trailcast.
The weekly show that gets so far off track, you'll have to stick around and see just where we end up.
So fasten your seatbelts, because
Today we're talking about the Fast and the Furious.
Alright, so Wesley, before we dive into the main topic of today's podcast, I wanted to just talk about something real quick for our YouTube audience. So we're kind of changing up some things on YouTube. So we are going to be still posting the full podcast on YouTube every Monday, just like every other platform. But we're also going to start posting what we start calling Trail Bites, which are just shorter
With that
segments.
in mind, before I get too far off track, we are going to start posting the full podcast on YouTube on Monday, whereas we haven't been in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, generally what we've been posting in the past has been more of a abridged version, I guess you could call it. But yeah, the full podcast is going to be going up on YouTube on Monday, and then we're going to be posting shorter videos, snippets from the full podcast. So if you don't necessarily have time during the week to listen to the full podcast, you can listen to those. They're going to be 5 to 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, but not much longer than 15 minutes.
And you can always watch shorts. They will be on being posted Tuesday through Saturday.
Yep. Alright. On to the Fast and Furious. So listen. What do you think about the Fast and Furious franchise? Furious.
You're furious or you're curious? Or you're furiously curious? Anyways, I will shut up about that and actually get on topic.
A T in there, but yeah. Sorry, we're talking over each other again.
It happens, and it's kind of bad. But so my thoughts on the Fast and Furious franchise is I was thinking about it. So Fast 10 comes out. It will be out by the time of the release of this podcast, correct?
Yes.
Because it comes out this weekend, as of recording this.
Yes.
We're recording this the Tuesday before it comes out. So, honestly, I'm excited for this. Because, okay, the Fast and Furious franchise is so out of nowhere, so random, so it doesn't take itself seriously, and I think that's what makes it so good. You know?
Mm.
You're not supposed to take it seriously. It's not in the real world. It's a movie, and, maybe it's strayed away from its roots about being strictly about cars, but I watched the trailer right before we did this. And the trailer starts off with, a voiceover. And the guy's talking about how they all started off as street racers and they started pulling heists and then they started doing bigger and bigger and bigger. But he said, basically, if it could be done with the car, they were doing it, And it's that's really what the Fast and the Furious franchise is. It's it's the main cast that they've kind of, gotten over the years. And their plot is, what kind of action can we make that includes cars? Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. No. I mean, what? The last movie had a car in space, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was the last one. That didn't make any sense. But it's so fun. It's fun. It doesn't make sense, and I think that's what makes it so good.
And see, I think that's the thing. So for the first couple movies, it seemed like they weren't really, but it seemed like they were trying to make it somewhat grounded. But yeah, they somewhere along Fast 4 or 5, or might have been as late as 6. They just like, okay, you know what? Let's stop trying to focus in on realism and try to focus more in on just the cool aspect of it.
Yeah. and it's one of those things where, like, I don't know, they've just done so well. Like, what was in the last movie? Like, okay, we were talking about this before the podcast, before we started recording, how, like, you know, you had to watch a recap of basically all the movies because it's been so long since you watched them. It's been a while since I've watched them, but like bits and pieces are coming back to me. And I think in the last movie, if I remember right, what's his name? It's not Ludacris's character. It's the friend from Fast 4, I think. Or is it Fast 2? He's in it. He's one of the comedic characters. Anyways, he's talking about how, you know, he's like, I think we have superpowers because, like, we just do all this dumb stuff and we don't die. What'd you say?
Wasn't that Roman?
Roman, yes.
Yeah.
He was talking about, he was like, we do all this stuff and we don't die. And it's like, you know, it's like kind of fourth wall breaking, like obviously the plot armor, but and as obvious as it was that they were doing that, it was still funny, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure not everyone liked it, but like, you know, it's still.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, honestly, now that's pretty much all the Fast and Furious franchise has become, is just the you know, like, just sit there and enjoy the movie. Don't really focus in on the plot because the plot's not really that deep. Which, I mean, to a degree, I don't mind that. I do.
I mean, it's like they kind of.
Oh, go ahead. Good.
I'm not going. I'm just gonna wait here.
So we're playing chicken now?
Yes. And you got chicken. Go. Duck, duck, goose.
What?
I don't know. Just finish what you were saying. Let's go ahead and finish what you're saying.
Well, no, like I said, I think, like, you know, Fast 5 and 6 are probably my favorites, just because they did have more of a plot back then.
Mm-hmm.
But still, they still had a lot of the you know, suspension of disbelief kind of a thing, you know.
Yeah. Well, I don't. I mean, yeah, they don't have the biggest overall plot. Like, most of the time, their plot is the same from movie to movie. You know, and it's just. They're leaning into it so hard because obviously it's funny. It's funnier for them to lean into it. But, like, you know, the villain of one movie is their family the next, you know? Like, that's just a cycle. But like, it's the same, the villain's the same kind, like, the same type. Like, their villains don't have much depth. And I think even in this one, like, Jason Momoa is supposed to be the villain. And he's talking about it, and he's like, you know, the reason I am the man I am today is because of you, Dominic Toretto. And it's like, you know, I don't know if he's supposed to be from some other movie, and, like, you know, they're supposed to be referencing something, or how it's supposed to go down. But, like, you know, the main plot is the same. They have a heist, they have someone chasing them, they have this, that, the other thing, yada, yada, yada. Very basic. But I do think, and I don't know if it was, I think it was with this last one, that they went kind of into the backstory of Toretto. And, like, that was kind of nice. Kind of fleshing out his story a little bit. And some other aspects, you know, here and there. I think they have glimpses of, hey, we're actually trying to make a decent story here. And then they're like, nah, we actually don't want to do that. We just want to blow things up, you know?
Mm. Or have, a car in space, or have a car jump from one skyscraper to another, or,
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, what you had Dominic flying across the 4 lane or it might have been more than 4 lanes, but that little gap on the bridge to catch. Why are all their names blanking on me? What's his girl's name?
Letty.
Letty. To catch Letty, and doing the Superman dive, and it's like, yeah, it doesn't make sense, but we're going for it.
And one thing I thought about earlier too is like, so the first time I watched The Fast and the Furious, the first one,
Mm-hmm.
it honestly wasn't that good. Like, the first time I watched it, I didn't really like it that much. Going back and watching it now, I like it. But the first time I watched it, I didn't really like it. Which, it's really weird.
That's fair.
It's really weird. Like, I guess now it's more just, the nostalgia from it of, oh yeah, this is where all these characters originated from. But, or well, not even all the characters, most of the characters that are in it now weren't even in it in the first one. But, like, or at least the origin, it was the origins of the franchise.
Mm.
But still, it's like, it's not, it wasn't really, like I said, even back then, it was literally really just a movie to have drag racing in it.
Yeah. Well, I will say though,
what the movie was about.
As sad as this is, well, it's not that sad, but that movie probably has one of the best plots for the Fast and Furious franchise. I mean, I liked the movie. I mean, it's obviously an early 2000s movie. Like, early 2000s is written all over that movie in like big black letters. It is screaming at you saying, "I was made in the early 2000s."
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know. That I mean, it was a style back then, and I'm not saying it's a bad style, but like, it's just kind of funny to go back and watch that and just see what the franchise is now. Like, what the first one came out in? When did the first one come out?
2001, I think.
2001. I was about to say. I knew it was like maybe sometime around 2000, 2002, or somewhere in that area. And they're making a new one now, so the franchise has been around for at least more than 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's obviously been through a progression. But I don't know. I like the first one. I think the second one leaned on the first one's success, and then the third one, Tokyo Drift, kind of came out of nowhere. Like you watch that and you're like, wait a minute, I don't know any of these characters. Like, where'd everyone go?
Mm-hmm. So that's the thing.
But honestly, it's probably one of my favorites.
The fourth one is when it really kind of like the franchise started to take shape. Like I said, I love 5 and 6. The fourth one is kind of when it started to take shape into the franchise it is now. But yeah, like it's just, I think the most recent couple haven't been as good, but it's still the movie is like, yeah, you just go to watch stuff blow up and watch cars go fast.
You know what we were talking about. What was it, last week or maybe the week before, about like how Hollywood is now? It's like, yes, it's a nostalgia movie and it's a cash grab, but we're still gonna go watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you talking about like the reputation the franchise has now. So one thing I was looking at earlier, So, of like movie franchises, so this list is from Wikipedia,
Hmm.
but it has Fast and Furious as the 8th highest grossing film franchise of all time.
That makes sense.
So, but okay, so the thing is though, they put it, okay, so it's ahead of the DC Extended Universe, the X-Men franchise, Jurassic Park, the Lord of the Rings. But the one that right ahead of it at 7 is just Batman. But they lumped every single Batman movie ever into that franchise. So,
Wow.
like, if you broke it down to just like The Dark Knight and some of the other, like it wouldn't, wouldn't really it wouldn't really be ahead of the Fast and Furious. Also, Avengers is on this list, like the 4 Avengers movies and the MCU.
Wow.
So
I mean, that just shows how Marvel's leagues ahead with
well,
how
no,
they're doing.
the MCU. Okay, just for reference, the MCU on this is obviously number 1 on this list. They have 32 films. Star Wars is second with 12 films, but the MCU has grossed 3 times what Star Wars has.
32 and 12. I mean, they
Well,
they
I'm
got
not
almost
talking,
3
I'm
times
not
the
talking,
movies.
yeah, but Star Wars is at, hold up, that's 1,000 million. That's billion. Yeah, okay, so 10.3 billion is Star Wars, and the MCU is 29.3 billion. So, like I said, almost 3 times what Star Wars has.
Yeah. But if you break that down to the fact that Marvel has almost 3 times the number of movies, then they probably are breaking even when it comes to the movies they put out.
Also, another thing I want to point out with Fast and Furious, so on this list of all the ones ahead of it, the only franchise that has less movies than the Fast and Furious franchise are the Avengers movies. They're at 6. So, Fast and Furious only has 10 at the moment. Obviously, we don't know how Fast X is going. This is including the 9 main line and Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah.
But like I said, the only franchise that is lower or that has less movies that's ahead of Fast and Furious is the Avengers franchise. So that's the four Avengers movies, which I think is kind of interesting. But yeah.
One thing you need to look up, and I think we should kind of talk about, is the timeline of the Fast and Furious, and not just that, specifically Han, because the reason the timeline's a little messed up is, I think, because of his character.
Alright, so I know Tokyo Drift technically is supposed to take place sometime. Is it after 6 or is it after 7?
Well, I was hoping you could look up a list for it. My internet's running a little slow. I can't look anything up right now without slowing everything down.
Okay.
But I think it's 1, 2, 4, 5, maybe 6.
Alright, so Fast and
It's
Furious
got to be
movies
5 or
in
6.
chronological order. Alright, so obviously the Fast and the Furious kicked it off. Then Too Fast, Too Furious.
Oh, they're naming too. That is just confusing.
We'll get into that. Let's see.
Yes.
So Fast 4, Fast 5. Well, actually, the 4th one is just Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
Then then it's Fast 5, then it's Fast and Furious 6, then Tokyo Drift. So Tokyo Drift's after 6.
So between 6 and 7. Okay.
Yep. Then Furious 7.
Talking about that. Talking about that. Gal Gadot's character was really good, and I understand killing her off, but like, she had a good character.
Mm.
It's kind of hard when you time jump around to keep things continuity wise. You have to do stuff like that. But
except,
still.
yeah, they did that so they didn't have, because Han died. But then in
Then they bring him back.
the Fate of the Furious 8, they brought him back, or was
9,
9?
I think, wasn't it?
It was 9.
I don't remember.
Okay.
I think he's only been in 1, right?
It might have been 9, but
Who rescued him?
no, remember he was working for Kurt Russell's character. Hold up, who? What is his name?
Hold up. Kurt Russell was in it. It's been a minute. Oh my! Every big actor's been in these franchises. This is basically the next Marvel. Before Marvel was Marvel. Yeah, but someone.
Mr. Nobody, the government guy.
Yeah, I remember him now.
Yeah,
but someone pulled him out of the car wreck though.
Yeah. Wait.
Wasn't that cause Shaw has a brother, right?
Owen Shaw.
Was it his brother? Or was it Shaw?
Wait, hold
I didn't think it was Shaw.
No.
We're talking in circles.
Deckard Shaw was the one who blew up the car. Remember?
Yeah.
But I think Owen Shaw was still in the coma at that point.
So it was someone else. So,
oh my gosh! Like I said, these movies run together for me.
Okay, but in all honesty, this is a lot easier to keep up with than most other movie franchises nowadays.
Mm. Hold up.
When did Fast 4 come out? Fast Furious.
4. 2009.
2009. So, granted, the MCU had started, but if we think about it, the Fast and the Furious are the first world-building movie franchise. Big one, at least. I mean, I guess you had Star Wars, but
I mean, like, well,
it's a little different with that,
if you're talking about like a movie, like a, you also have Harry Potter too. That was big.
That's true.
It still is.
That's true.
Well,
I think more so, I guess what I'd mean by that is, like, nowadays everything has to be connected, and, like, you're not going to make any original ideas. You're just going to keep making movies in the same franchise. And, like, since Fast and the Furious, I guess Fast and the Furious has been around the longest. Now, I think I've heard that they're talking about making another Harry Potter movie.
weren't they making the like prequels or whatever?
Yeah, so if they do that, I guess technically that still adds in, because people talk about Star Wars being around for, like, what? Let's see, from the 70s till now is 40 years? Yeah, math, 40. It's a little over 40 years, I guess, because it was late 70s,
Mm.
and that spans a long. But does it count if you just add one movie onto the end? We're not talking about Harry Potter. We're talking about Fast and the Furious. We'll worry about that later.
I don't know. But again, like I said, there's so much to the Fast and Furious universe. Well, not even really that much. It's just, like I said, the movies, for me at least, tend to run together.
Yeah, I mean they are basically the same plot over and over and over again. Like there's not as much as I love them. If I'm gonna dissect the plot and actually look at it from like a movie critic standpoint, they're not that great. But I mean, I still like them. Like
Like
they have good elements to them, and they have a lot of action. That's fun.
Like, well, okay, so earlier when I watched that like recap of the franchise so far, I had forgotten that the jailbreak scene with Hobbs and Shaw was in Fate of the Furious. I could have sworn that was in Hobbs and Shaw.
Which jailbreak scene?
The one where Hobbs and Shaw break out of jail.
You talking about the one where they're like on either side of the glass and they're beating up bad guys or something like that?
No, that is in Hobbs and Shaw.
It is in Hobbs and Shaw. I don't necessarily know if I remember what you're talking about then.
Okay. Well, there's a scene where Luke Hobbs and Deckard Shaw are in jail, and they break out. And I could have sworn that scene was in Hobbs and Shaw, but it was actually in Fate of the Furious.
You're breaking up on my end bad.
Oh. Did you catch what I said, or do you want me to repeat it?
I have no idea what you said. What?
No, I just said that there was a scene in Fate of the Furious where Luke Hobbs and Deckard Shaw broke out of prison, but like I said, I remember that, or I didn't remember that being in Fate of the Furious.
Mm. I think I could probably tell you the plot of the first one, the second one, the third one. And if I remember right, probably the fourth one. That would be about it.
I could tell you the plot of Hobbs and Shaw because that's the one that stands out.
What was the plot of Hobbs and Shaw? I've seen it before, but like it's only been like maybe once or twice. I know
remember it was like
fighting each other, but
remember it was Idris Elba was like the super soldier guy, and he's trying to get like the
yes,
yeah.
What's going on with his character? You know, like they beat him down, but he didn't die at the end, right?
And then they like introduced like a big bad kind of behind him too that hasn't gone anywhere. Or well, hold up, wait a minute.
Well, they've also mentioned that other girl, the lady.
Was that did they expand on that in F9? Hold up.
They might have they expanded a little bit on it. I don't know how much. That's the biggest thing. I don't know how much they've expanded on it because the lady I'm talking about with the short blonde hair.
Oh yeah.
She's in the trailer for this Fast and Furious movie, so this might be, part of it. But it doesn't sound like they're taking her down just yet, if she's still around.
Mm. So let's talk a little bit about some of the characters. So
okay, it's really hard to talk about a movie that doesn't have much plot to it. So yeah, let's switch over to characters.
Well, and this is another thing too. Like I would like start off with talking about Dom, but he really doesn't have a lot of character development throughout the series. It's pretty much just kind of like flip-flopping back and forth between like criminal and a good guy.
let's be honest here, not many of them have character development. I will say though, and I think one of the reasons that the first couple movies are so good is because of I don't know, I can't remember the actor's name or the character's name, but I think you know what I'm talking about. The actor who died after like Fast Five, I think it was.
It was Furious 7. You're talking about Paul Walker.
He died in Furious. Paul Walker, yeah. It was Furious 7. He was.
Yeah, Brian O'Connor, his character.
Brian O'Connor. I think he has the most development throughout the franchise.
Yes.
Now,
that's also...
the reason being is because I think the franchise... Okay, the franchise is about him. Like, he's the main character of it, and after Paul Walker's passing, they meshed it pretty seamlessly because, you know, Dom had been a huge part of it up until that point. They meshed it to where now it's about Dom, you know.
So, okay, kind of... I do have another thought I want to talk about, but I want to add on to what you just said here. I think they did what Pirates of the Caribbean tried to do, but better. Because, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean was about Will Turner. Mm-hmm. And, you know, taking it and making this really a side character the main focus of it, which is what they did in Fast and Furious. I think that they did a lot better. But going back to talking about Brian, he's kind of an interesting character too, because like you don't often see many characters in movies and stuff go through the character development he went through, because instead of going from like, okay, I'll use well, I mean, you can use a lot of examples like this, but I'm gonna use Han Solo as an example, like turning from like you know the scum to a hero.
Yeah, that's usually the way the transformation goes.
But Brian went from being a cop to a criminal.
Yeah,
like it.
But
you don't
in the eyes of the viewer, he does go from scum to hero because of the way that they portray it on screen.
Yeah, but like I said, if you apply like a real world, and I know it's not, you know. These aren't the kind of movies you're supposed to, but you know, if you apply
real world thing, it's completely different.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. You don't often have characters like that. That's why characters like Brian or I've never watched it, but I know the basic plot of it. But Walter White from Breaking Bad, like characters like that started out good, and then just. Well, I know Breaking Bad portrays it differently because he really is a villain in the show, but even though he's the main character, but whereas in Fast and Furious, he's Brian's kind of portrayed as being a hero, even though he's technically a criminal.
Well, because you think about it, the whole entire message, as cheesy as it is, and as much as people love to make fun of it, the whole entire idea of Fast and the Furious and the message behind it all is family. Like, in its own unique way, it's about taking care of those who are around you, and that's the big driving force for most of what happens in most of the movies, and so like you look at it from that aspect. In the first movie, he kind of gets into this family, and while yes, they're criminals, they are extremely close, extremely tight, and would do anything for anyone in the family. And then he gets into that, he does betray him a little, and then I think at the end of that, he, just different things happen. I can't remember all the different ins and outs of the movie, but at the end of it, he lets Dom go. And so that's kind of like, hey, we did this. And then I think at that point, he ends up leaving, the police force, and then goes into Fast 2. But it's like, he starts his transition because it's like, he got in with these group of people that centered around family, and he saw what it was like, and he was like, hey, these people aren't that bad. They don't deserve what they're going to get. And that kind of got him on the opposite side of the law that he needed to be on. And then he got in better with them being on that side of the law. And then everything after that is just him protecting family, And it's like, so it like the story progression makes sense, even though, like you said, it doesn't really, it's not something you see a whole lot in as a character development.
Although I will
in most
say,
things.
like you said, the main message between behind the Fast and Furious franchise is like the family aspect of it. And one thing that's just kind of interesting is that this group of people started out as criminals, but now in a lot of these movies they are like both both like for the viewer and technically in universe are the heroes. They're fighting criminals and terrorists and all this stuff.
And one, didn't they get hired by the government?
Yeah, because like I said, Kurt Russell's character works for the government. And he's sent them on missions before. I think the first one where they really like went up against like another like criminal was it Fast 5
with 5 or with I think it was Fast 5. Which one was the one where
with Owen Shaw?
Lonnie was in Fast 4. It might be Fast 6.
Okay.
Which one did Lonnie die in? Or quote unquote die?
I don't remember. Like I said, they're running.
I know which one you're talking about.
But no, it's the one with Owen Shaw. I forget his name, the actor's name. The guy who played Bard the Bowman in The Hobbit.
Yeah.
But
well, that's not the first one they go. That's not the first one they go against the bad guy, because they go up against the drug lord guy in Mexico first.
Yeah, you're right. I think
and
that one
I
might
think
be...
it's either Fast 5 or Fast 6.
I think that one might be Fast 5, and then Fast 6 is the one with Owen Shaw. Then Fast 7 is the one with Deckard Shaw. I don't think that one comes... I think.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my timeline right here.
I don't know how many like highly devoted fans the Fast and the Furious franchise has, like people who are just like so into it, But if any of those ever listen to this, they are going to be ripping their heads out, hair out.
Well, they might rip their heads out too. I don't know.
I mean, it depends on how bad we're butchering this. We're doing our best off of. We should. I was thinking about it. I was like, I need to probably watch something to talk about this. And that was another thing. I looked at our schedule. Before earlier this past week, and I was like, okay, we're talking about Fast and the Furious. So I was like, so we're probably talking about Fast 10, right? I went and looked at the schedule for when that was coming out. It wasn't until, this coming Friday. And I was like, well, that doesn't add up. So I texted you to make sure that that's what we were talking about. And it's fine. I'm fine not having to go watch a movie to talk on the podcast. But it's like one of those things where it might have been better for us to pick one to talk about, because we're going to be all over the place.
And I was kind of thinking about that too. We might at some point want to do like what we're doing with the Star Wars movies, and
I think that
maybe not necessarily do it on each individual one, but maybe watch like 3 at a time, talk about them, just to get a better, more like focused in discussion.
Yeah.
But because
it's bad because you and me can focus anyways, and then we're talking about such a broad subject, so we're all over the place.
Yes. Yeah, this conversation is all over the place, but then again, it normally is. So,
yeah. I will say I'm proud of us because we have mostly stayed on topic in most of our podcasts while being all over the place. So I think that's a pretty big accomplishment for us.
Yeah, yeah. Because not normally we can't stay on topic on anything.
Exactly.
Anyway, we should probably dive back into Fast and Furious for like another, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes before we move on to what's new with you.
Yeah. I do want to talk about still sticking on with the character of Paul Walker's character, Brian. I know you're not a very emotional person, David, and I know I'm not a very emotional person. But man,
that
I can't remember which
that third act of Furious 7 hits hard.
That's a
like
I love it so much, but it hits so hard.
Like, okay, and this thing, it's not even like the story isn't even sad. It's just knowing the real life side of it. It's just
it hits so hard. And like as it fades to black, you know, like in memory of Paul Walker, like stuff with that. Now I want to talk about that for a little bit because, like, so Fast and the Furious, they did the right thing in not recasting Brian O'Connor.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That would have been the worst move ever for them to do. And I think because there was a lot of like people who said more recently with the death of Chadwick Boseman and saying, "Oh, just recast him, recast Black Panther." It's like, no. I think when it comes to stuff like, and obviously, Paul Walker had been in the Fast and Furious franchise a lot longer than Chadwick Boseman had been in the Marvel universe, but it's still like there's times where it makes sense to recast a character, like, you know, Dumbledore in the Harry Potter movie. The first two is a different actor than the second, you know, the later ones, and it's like that kind of makes sense also because the story had already been written.
And he also he's also barely in the first two, so
yeah, and it's like, you know, there are times that it makes sense, and there's times that it's okay, I think. But when it comes to something like that, like, it's so much more respectful to not, like, Paul Walker made that character who he was. And it's not something that you can have some other actor come in and do because they wouldn't do it justice. And it's not even that the actor would be bad. It's that the actor isn't the same one that you've known all this time. I think the same way with Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick Boseman did not necessarily define Black Panther because, you know, Black Panther is a hero that's been around in the comics for years, but he defined the MCU version of Black Panther. And I think that needed to be honored. You know, I think that obviously we're not talking about the Black Panther movie. I think they did that really well and really respectful. But, you know, that being said, I think as sad as the happy moment in Fast 7 is at the end there, I think it was really, really well done.
And like, I think the fact that Fast 7 was pretty much like I said, that third act was almost the entire third act was a tribute to Paul Walker. And I think they did that very.
I mean, he got in the car. It was a car crash that ended up killing him, I think, and he got in that midway through filming, right?
Because his
like, mostly done.
Because Paul Walker's brother actually had to finish filming Furious 7. What is his name?
I will say, as sad, I don't want to like make jokes or anything like that about it, so I'm not trying to be funny with this, but it is kind of. No, that doesn't necessarily sound right. So, I don't necessarily know if how I know I've read it before, but the accident that Paul Walker was in was his buddy or someone was driving, and the buddy was a stunt driver, and it's one of those things where it's like, Brian O'Connor being the fast driving, it's like, he died the way that he lived. Not necessarily, because I don't know how much Paul Walker was in the cars, but,
So when I actually at first heard about that, at first I thought that it was an accident, that it was related to the movie.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
But no, like you said, it was something that Paul Walker was in his personal life had was driving riding with his buddy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. But no, talking about that movie, I think they did it very well. But like talking about last week, I don't get emotional in movies much.
Yeah.
But yeah, Furious 7 is one that
You gotta tear up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those.
And I think one of the reasons what makes it so sad is because it was real.
Yeah. I do kind of like how they mention him in the later ones, but they kind of let him phase out. Like, they don't just kill the character off. Like, at Fast 7, he's starting a family.
Like, I think it was in Fast 9. They had, like, the car pulling into the driveway.
Yeah.
And, that was it.
It's like,
which
Ryan O'Connor is still in the universe, but,
yeah.
Even though the actor who played him is no longer with us.
Yeah. And like I said, I think they did. I know I've said this already, but I think they did that really well in Furious 7.
They did it so well that we have to keep saying it.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that might be one of my more favorite ones just because of that.
Yeah.
Like the plot itself, like you said, it's the same plot as all the other movies. I honestly don't even really remember the plot of Furious 7, but I remember all the Paul Walker moments.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that was the main focus of the movie. It was a tribute to Paul Walker.
Yeah. So, yeah, Wesley, do you have any final thoughts on the Fast and Furious franchise?
I mean, not specifically. Like I said when you were asking me like what I thought of it, like it's a fun ride, but don't take it too seriously. Like they're good movies if you're watching them within the realm of these are movies. Like, I'm not going into the movie looking at it like, hey, I'm analyzing this plot. I got to break it down detail by detail and see all, the intricate details of this plot, because it's not there. But they're still fun movies. They're kind of one of those movies you go into the theater, you can more or less kind of shut your brain off, enjoy everything, and you can walk out having enjoyed yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that is that's definitely what they're going for with these movies, and that's nothing too. Like, yes, they don't really have the most intricate plots, but it's a movie franchise that never really claimed to.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Like, not every single movie has to have a very detailed, intricate plot. Like, they can have basic plots. They can have minimal, sometimes even nothing plots. Like, okay, No Way Home. Not No Way Home. Yeah, No Way Home. Had probably one of the worst, when you think about it, one of the the worst plots in an MCU movie, but it was still a lot better than a large majority of MCU movies. But it's a lot because they played into nostalgia, which is the same thing that the Fast and the Furious franchise does. And so I think if you play your cards right, and the Fast and Furious has been doing it for a long time now, so I think they kind of got it down. You don't always have to have a good plot to have a good movie. So I think they've done real well. I'm excited to see Fast 10. I'm sure it's going to be great. My recommendation would be go see it if you have not.
And
if it's bad, then cut that out.
But yeah, your point with that, like it's not really so much about the plot in these movies. It's about being a fun movie. It's like okay, you go to watch John Wick, you're not really watching it for the plot, which I think John Wick has a better plot than some action movies, a lot of action movies. But you're not really going for the plot. You're going to see Keanu Reeves beat up a bunch of guys.
Yes, basically.
But yeah, like I think Fast and Furious is the same kind of thing. You're not really going into it for the story. You're going into it to see explosions and the stunts and the fight choreography and all the car stuff.
Yeah, and just have a good time watching that. Yeah, exactly. It's perfectly fine to do that.
And like I said, yes, that's all pretty much all the Fast and Furious franchise is. But they never claimed it was anything else.
Exactly. So yeah.
So I don't really have a problem with that.
Like for anyone who hates on the Fast and the Furious franchise, it's a franchise because of the fans. People keep coming back to it, and so they keep cranking out movies. So that's about how it. That's just the cut and dried how it is.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I guess it's time to move on to what's new with you. What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? Yeah.
David, I need to know what's new with you.
Well, Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, I was about to say I know that came out this past weekend, and I've actually been playing my Switch more, and I'm pretty sure what was it Sunday I got on there, and you, Robert, and my sister-in-law were all on it, and I know that my sister-in-law had just gotten Tears of the Kingdom, so I was like, they're all playing Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I stayed on there all day because I think I got on it in the afternoon sometime, and then I got it on a little bit later in the evening, and like you were still on there. And I was like, man, he's really getting in those hours of gameplay.
So I haven't played it like nonstop. I mean, I've played it a lot. I haven't played it completely nonstop, but I have left it open on my Switch, so it probably says I'm playing it even when I'm not. But yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I wasn't both times or whenever you checked, but.
Well, I didn't necessarily check. I think one time I just saw that there was a little thing at the top that said I had like one or two friends playing, and so I assumed it probably was you.
Let me see if it'll tell me how many hours I got right now. Let's see. No, it doesn't tell me how many hours I've got yet. It just says I first played it 4 days ago. But yeah, I have been playing it a lot. And actually, one thing that was kind of funny that I actually wasn't really expecting. So I got it physically from one of the game stores here in town, a little local game store here in town. So he got it. He got 20 copies of the game. Okay. I went on Friday, so the day the game came out, on Friday, 30 minutes after he opened, he had 4 left.
Wow.
So he had sold 16 copies before I got there, and I got there 30 minutes after he opened.
You probably best believe that there was at least a couple people standing outside waiting for him to open.
Hmm. Now he said, only said he had 4 copies. He might have had some set aside for friends or whatever, but
Yeah.
still he only had 4 copies that weren't already spoken for.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on my list to play after I play Breath of the Wild, but I got a lot of games to get through before I can get to Breath of the Wild.
Mm.
Even longer before I can get to Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah. Well, hopefully by the time you get around to it, it'll come down in price, because Tears of the Kingdom is the first Switch game to be $70.
Oh my. Yeah, I told Sarah, because she plays Zelda and all that. And we got, a while back, we got her Breath of the Wild, when we got a Switch. And, went out and got it for her. I don't remember if it was a birthday or something like that. I might have just gotten it for, I don't remember. But, we went out and got it. And, I think when we got that, like, I think we got it for maybe around 40. I think there was a sale or something going on.
Mm.
But I told her, I said, you finish Breath of the Wild? And I said, then we'll go get you Tears of the Kingdom. And I was like, I'm saying that because hopefully it takes you a long time to play Breath of the Wild, so that by the time you finish, Tears of the Kingdom won't cost so much.
Mm. But Tears of the Kingdom is definitely one of the, like, most of the Zelda games are just like, they're really reboots. Most of the Zelda games are really reboots.
Yeah.
But Tears of the Kingdom is a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, so you could just pick it up and start playing it, but you really need to play Breath of the Wild first.
Yeah, I'm planning on playing that. I'm not even planning on getting Tears of the Kingdom until it's probably a little bit more reasonable. I'm not
But
I haven't even played the Zelda games, so I'm definitely not a diehard fan of it yet.
Well, I'm talking about that. You mentioned you got you thought you'd gotten Breath of the Wild on sale. That's really the way to buy first party Switch games, because
Yeah.
like, games that Breath of the Wild was a launch title on Switch. Switch has been out since 2016, and it's just now come down in price from 60 to 50.
Yeah. Well, like you were saying that one, I don't remember if you said on the podcast or whatever, but talking about how like Nintendo doesn't bring their price down because they don't want people to wait for it to come down before they buy the game. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, probably because you just want to make money off of it, but
that's most of it. But
that's why that's so much for it.
That's Nintendo's excuse, is they don't want people to feel left out from waiting for the game to come down in price. Which, I mean, most games on the Xbox and stuff, I'm gonna wait for them to come down in price.
Yeah.
Before I actually start playing it. Like,
yeah.
Well, I don't even have a series yet, but like Jedi Survivor, I'm not gonna spend $70 for Jedi Survivor. I mean, and right now it's really buggy and stuff. So,
yeah.
But
yeah, I will definitely be getting all these games cheap because it will be a long time before I play it.
Mm-hmm.
At least a year or two.
Yeah, but yeah, just Switch games. This thing, keep an eye out for deals or whatever. eBay is actually a good way to get Switch games.
Well, the thing though that Nintendo has going for it, with asking so much for their games, is people will buy it because people love their games.
Mm-hmm.
People love Mario. People love Zelda. People love all the other. I think that's most of the games they put out now. Their highest, probably, priorities.
Mario's the most well-known ones, but yeah, they do have like Legends of Zelda, Splatoon, Uh,
Mm.
I know other Nintendo franchises. I'm drawing a blank now. Metroid.
Well, I almost said
Uh,
Sonic, but that's Sega.
that's Sega. Which Sega stuff's actually on other consoles too.
Hmm.
Which Sega hasn't made a console since the what was the last console? Was it the Dreamcast? Same generation as the
Mm.
PlayStation and uh, GameCube.
I know it.
I want to say,
I know it's been a while.
or was it no? No, it was the same generation as the N64. The console generations are confusing.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, look no further than Xbox. Xbox 360, Xbox One. What?
And now they're at Xbox Series.
That doesn't even make any sense.
But no, also, do you know the reason Xbox hasn't or didn't make it just Xbox 2, Xbox 3, Xbox 4?
PlayStation.
Because they don't want it to sound like they're a generation behind PlayStation.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
so
Can't do that with the competition.
it's so like petty. Which
yeah.
which
It definitely is.
Which the console wars in general are.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Companies need to put their best foot forwards and leave it at that, because customers are going to buy what they want to buy. You know?
Mm-hmm.
People have been playing PlayStation for years. People have been playing Xbox for years. And they're going to buy what they want.
Which Xbox actually kind of screwed themselves over when they launched the Xbox One, because the Xbox One kind of had a controversial launch, and they had a lot of diehard 360 fans who went and bought PS4s because they didn't like something, the controversial launch from the Xbox One.
Sometimes you go too big and it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
It's like you can't always play it safe, but sometimes you can't go too far.
Yeah, that is true. I'd kind of like to see Sega just randomly drop a new console. I think they've gone bankrupt several times, so I don't even know if that's gonna happen. But I just think it would be funny.
I wouldn't be
random.
I wouldn't be surprised if sometime in the future, with how big like a lot of these consoles are getting, and like Nintendo coming out with the Switch and stuff like that, if they were just to like, maybe not specifically them, but if like Sega as a brand dropped a console, like let's say maybe they're bankrupt or they're going bankrupt, and someone says, "Oh, hey," and they buy them, then they drop
Sega. Sega was one of the OG consoles. With the Sega Genesis and the Dreamcast, and there was one more. Wait, I'm drawing a blank. But I don't remember what it is.
But here's the question:
they were like back during the days of like Atari and like the NES and stuff. Those were the big three. They were Atari, Nintendo, and Sega.
But here's the question though: what would they do that would make them stand out? Like everyone's copying, like PlayStation and Xbox are copying each other, and more or less, not really. I think they're trying to make themselves look different, but whatever. They're in the same kind of console type architecture, and then everything else is copying Nintendo with a Switch. So it's like, how would they make their console stand out, make it different, make it worth spending that money on something else?
That's a good question, but I'm not a game designer, so I couldn't tell you.
Like that's probably the biggest thing that they reason they haven't is because like Nintendo was kind of like the reason the Switch is such a big thing is because it kind of was revolutionary. Like they attempted it, I think, with the Wii U, but that didn't work out. So they're like, let's make this better,
Well,
and
okay,
then they
so
came out the Switch.
and as from the Switch is what everyone wanted the Wii U to be. Because
Yeah,
the thing with the Wii U with the gamepad like that was the like being able to play your home console handheld. That's what everyone wanted to be. Which you could do it on the Wii U, but then you had to be within like 30 feet of the actual home console, so you couldn't
I
take it on
never
the
had a
go.
Wii U, so I don't know. My
And well,
thought
also,
when I saw the commercials for the Wii U, like what I know a Switch to be now is what I did and think watching the commercials what I thought the Wii U was.
mm, the Nintendo had a lot of problems with. There were a lot of people who thought the Wii U was just an accessory for the Wii.
It kind of came across that way.
They thought, yeah, and that's the problem. Most people thought that the Wii U was just the gamepad, and it worked with your Wii, which it doesn't. It didn't.
Yeah,
It was a different console, but still, that's
yeah,
what everyone thought it was. That's why it. One of the reasons why it failed was marketing.
yeah. And I think obviously like if the Wii U failing means that we have the Switch now, I am so glad the Wii U failed. Because
Yep.
handheld devices, gaming consoles like that you can play on your on your TV as well, are the coolest thing ever. Like, let's be honest here.
Mm. Which that was another thing too. They also had like I never really was into handheld. Like my Switch is the first like technically handheld console that I've had. Um,
Yeah.
like I never had a DS or 3DS or anything like that. But I didn't realize that the 3DS actually overlapped with the Wii U.
Yeah, I didn't
That was
realize that either. And I had DSs, so
because the DS was the handheld during like the Wii lifespan, and then the 3DS was uh the generations don't perfectly line up, but that was pretty much
yeah,
it. Like there was actually some overlap between like 3DS and Wii, or not Wii, 3DS and Switch.
yeah. The 3DS was interesting because like I don't know, I played the 3DS and like I never really saw much appeal to the 3D side of it. Like it wasn't the greatest, obviously, and so it was just like cool, a device that does a little bit more than the DS. But why do you need the 3D
Well,
aspect of it? Like it didn't
I
ever
think
really
it was
work that
also
well.
I think the 3DS was also a slightly beefier console, so it could run better games, which is why you
Oh,
have
it did. But
which
as far as the 3D aspect,
yeah, and I would agree with that because I never had one, but I played one before, and yeah, the
yeah,
3D was kind of just gimmicky.
it was one of
Most
those
of the
things where like you liked playing the better games, but it wasn't the 3D aspect was not the selling feature for it.
mm. Well, and that's actually why they released the 2DS, which was a 3DS without the 3D.
Yeah. Well, that one just looked weird though, because like the DS had the style of like having the two sides that close together and same way, like
The
the
clamshell,
flip side,
yeah.
and then the 2DS, because like I looked into getting one when I first started making a little money when I was just like younger. I mean, I maybe fifth, sixth, seventh grade somewhere in there, and I was like, oh yeah, I might want to get one, because they were kind of big at that time, and I was like, I might want to get one, and I looked at the 2DS, and I was like, that just looks weird.
Now
Like
they
it was all
did
just
have
one flat.
they did have 2DSs that had the clamshell, but yeah, I think it was the first 2DS. It was just it was just a brick.
Yeah. I mean, I had like little rounded at the top, but like I don't know, it just never was a really appealing console. It would have been better, I think, if they kind of went away from the DS style and maybe didn't have just the two little tiny screens on it. But then,
Well,
it wouldn't
be
necessarily be the DS.
Because DS stands for dual screen. So
Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm trying to make a better DS. I'm just trying to make a better console. Essentially, I'm trying to make the Switch.
mm-hmm.
It's like a third-party Switch.
There are actually a ton of those.
Yes.
Don't buy those. Don't buy those. Just save up and buy the real thing.
Now, I did always want a PSP growing up because it was in my mind growing up with the DS. It was like, oh, it's a DS, but I can play PlayStation games on it.
Hmm.
I never got one. I might if I ever get to the point where they're cheaper and I kind of want to just test one out. I might buy one if I, have ever get to the point where it's like, I don't really care if I spend maybe $100 or so dollars. But
well,
I don't know. Some of them still are expensive.
So with the PSP, I've heard again, it's just rumors. I don't know if anything actually has any validity to these, but
yeah,
I've heard rumors that Sony is actually looking into making another handheld.
Well, in today's market, they probably should.
But I've heard that they want to make one that's basically just going to be for cloud play, basically playing from basically casting from your PS5 to your.
So basically, the Wii U.
Yeah, but it would be actually for on the go.
Yeah, I don't know about that though. I
feel like if you're gonna make if you're gonna make a handheld, actually make a handheld. Don't make it something that you have to buy the PS5 to.
Yeah, and also think about it. Okay, there are ways if they do cloud where you're if they make a device like the Switch and it doesn't have a game card slot. Okay, fine. I'll be fine with that. If you have to, but it has to be where whatever games you have on your console, you can download on the device. That would be fine. But if you have to have it where it's somehow connected, via through Wi-Fi or whatever, that can be a problem because what if you want to take it someplace where you can't get Wi-Fi or
Mm-hmm.
Your Wi-Fi is not strong, or I know Wi-Fi is not probably a big thing anymore because, most people have unlimited data a lot of times nowadays just because how cheap it tends to be, and with all that in mind, people don't usually think about what it takes with Wi-Fi and when they're out of it, everyone's so connected to the internet nowadays. But that being said, there are places in the world that don't have internet. So, if you have it where it has to be connected, that kind of limits your device where some people may not. It probably appeal to most gamers, but I don't know.
And especially for a handheld console, you need the mobility aspect of it.
Exactly.
Which is, and talking about the PSP too, the same game store where I bought Tears of the Kingdom that I mentioned. So he's got a lot of retro stuff. Well, he's got not only retro stuff, he's got everything. Everything. But, he had a couple PSPs and a couple PS Vitas in there. And I did not realize how small those things were.
They're about the size of a phone, right?
Yeah, they're tiny. They make the 3DS Slim and stuff. They make those look big.
Yeah. Now those still will run you about over 150 or so, right? I mean, depending on which one you get. Last I checked, it's still expensive.
Yeah, well, because they're not making them anymore, they're just gonna go up. I'd have to do a little bit more research into, what the best price for one is. Just don't buy from DK Oldies.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, though, his place there, I mean, how much did he have them priced for?
I don't remember. I think they were, like... In that case, I remember seeing a $90 price tag. I don't remember if that was on the PSP or one of the Game Boys. I don't remember.
If it was on one of the PSPs, it probably was one of the older ones. I say the PSP Vita, I think, was the last one that they released. So and that one still tends to be pretty expensive.
The PlayStation Vita was like the same time as the PS4, so it was pretty recent.
Yeah.
They might have released it during the time of the PS3, and then, but you know they were still releasing games on it when the PS4 was out. So I said that was relatively recent.
I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on them, which is why I wouldn't want to go out and get one unless I'm just like kind of messing around to get one. Because like I've heard mixed reviews as far as like how good the actual console is, like how well it holds up, and then also like some of the gameplay aspects of it. Like I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on a lot of that. So it's like I wouldn't necessarily go out and get it to be a replacement for anything, but I do want to eventually go out and get one to just see how it is. You know?
Well, and that's the thing too. Like you look at like Nintendo. Nintendo's got a long track record with handheld consoles. Like,
yeah,
back during like time of the original Game Boy, which I think they released. I don't know if they released it during the NES generation, but I know they had the Game Boy overlapping with the SNES generation. But you know, you had the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. I don't remember all the Game Boy variations. And then of course the DS, which had the DS and 3DS, which had a bunch of variations. And then, you know, that now they have the Switch. But like I said, you know, they definitely were. You know, they definitely do have a long track record of handheld consoles.
So they've been making these for a long time.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that we'd spend so much time talking about handheld consoles.
Yeah, I mean, hey, however the conversation flows.
Yeah. Well, seems like the conversation ended, so now would probably be a good time to go ahead and just end the podcast.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. So, ignoring the awkward silence.
You won't see me fighting. It's getting pretty late here, so.
Yeah, so
relatively.
Ignoring the awkward silence, let's go ahead and move on to an outro.
But I like awkward silence.
Well, explorers, that's all the time we have for today.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
Let us know what you thought in the comments down below. Or you can DM us on Instagram at DownTheRabbitTrailYT.
And be sure to join us next week on the Trailcast.